Hello, dear English learners, and welcome to today's podcast episode on Decode Your English. I'm really excited to talk about a topic that many of us can relate to. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you can easily understand English, whether it's reading or listening, but when it comes to speaking, you freeze up, you know the words, you understand what's being said, but when you try to speak, the words just don't come out the way you want them to? If this sounds like you, don't worry. You're not alone. This is a common challenge that many English learners face. It can be frustrating, and sometimes it might even feel like you're not making any progress. But I want to tell you right now, understanding English is a huge achievement. It means you've already built a solid foundation. The next step is to turn that understanding into confident speaking. And the good news is, with the right approach, you can absolutely do this. In today's episode, we're going to explore why many learners understand English but struggle to speak it. I'll share some insights into why this happens. And most importantly, I'll give you some simple practical tips to help you improve your speaking skills. Whether you're learning English for work, travel, or simply to improve your communication, this podcast is for you. By the end of this episode, you'll feel more confident about speaking English, and you'll have a clear plan to make progress every day. So, if you've ever thought, I understand English, but I can't speak it, stay tuned. We're going to talk about how to turn that frustration into action and take your speaking skills to the next level. Personal story or real life example. Let me share a story with you about a friend of mine who went through this exact challenge. My friend was an amazing student. She had been studying English for many years and had a deep understanding of grammar, vocabulary, and reading comprehension. She could read books in English, watch movies without subtitles, and understand everything that was being said. But when it came to speaking, well, that's when things got tricky. I remember the first time my friend and I went to a cafe together. She was excited about practicing her English, so I suggested that we order our coffee in English. She agreed. But when the moment came, she couldn't speak. She stood there looking at the barista, but her mouth went dry and the words didn't come out. She could hear the words in her head, but she couldn't make herself say them. I could tell she was frustrated, and I asked her, "What's going on? Why don't you just say it?" My friend looked at me and said, "I know what I want to say. I understand everything you're saying. But when it's my turn to speak, I get nervous. I'm scared I'll make a mistake or that I won't sound good." This is a very common feeling among learners who have spent time studying English but haven't had much practice speaking. For my friend, it wasn't that she didn't know how to speak, it was that she was afraid to make mistakes. She didn't want to sound wrong or unpolished. Her fear of speaking was holding her back, even though she had a great understanding of the language. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. I've been in my friend's shoes. Maybe you've studied English for a long time and you can understand everything. But when it's your turn to speak, you freeze. It can be so frustrating. You want to express yourself clearly, but you worry about how you sound. Maybe you're even worried about what others will think. I want to remind you, though, that these feelings are completely normal. You're not alone in this. In fact, I've talked to many learners who face the same issue, including some advanced students. They understand everything perfectly, but speaking feels like a mountain they can't climb. I've been there, to feeling like I could understand everything, but the minute I needed to say something, I felt stuck. For my friend, it took time and a change in mindset too. overcome her fear, one of the things that helped her was realizing that making mistakes is part of learning. Every time she made a mistake, she learned something new. She started practicing with me more, speaking in simple sentences, even when she wasn't sure if they were perfect. Slowly, she became more confident. Over time, my friends started speaking English more often, and she joined a speaking club where learners came together to practice. She began talking to strangers in English even when she wasn't sure if her grammar was perfect. Her confidence grew, and she became better and better. It wasn't about being perfect. It was about practicing, making mistakes, and learning from them. Today, my friend is one of the most confident English speakers I know. She travels around the world, speaks with people from all over, and has used English to build her career. Looking back, she says that the most important change she made was shifting her focus from being perfect to just speaking. The more she practiced, the more natural it became. She realized that speaking was about communication, not perfection. I share my friend's story because it's not unusual to feel like you understand English but can't speak it. In fact, this is one of the most common challenges for English learners. But just like my friend, you can overcome this challenge. It takes practice, patience, and a willingness to make mistakes. The more you practice, the more comfortable you will become, and one day you'll find that speaking English becomes as easy as understanding it. Why does this happen? If you're someone who understands English but struggles to speak it, you may be wondering why is this happening? It's a frustrating feeling because you've put in the work, you've learned the vocabulary, you've understood the grammar, and you can read and listen without much trouble. Yet, when it's time to speak, the words seem to get stuck, or you can't express yourself the way you wanted. The truth is, this is a very common experience for language learners, and it happens for a few important reasons. Let's explore some of the main reasons why understanding English and speaking it don't always go hand in hand. One, lack of practice. One of the most significant reasons why many learners struggle to speak even if they understand English is simply the lack of practice. Speaking is a skill just like any other, and it needs to be practiced regularly to improve. When we don't practice speaking, it's easy to get nervous and not feel confident when we actually need to use the language in real-life situations. Most learners spend a lot of time reading, listening, and studying grammar, which are all important skills, but they don't spend as much time speaking. Speaking requires us to produce words quickly and respond in real time, unlike listening, where you can take your time to understand. Speaking often requires us to think on the spot, which can feel overwhelming if we haven't had enough practice. The more we speak, the more comfortable and automatic it becomes. If you only practice speaking once in a while, you might find yourself freezing up when it's time to speak. But if you make speaking a daily habit, you will find that it becomes easier and more natural over time. To fear of making mistakes. Another reason many learners struggle to speak even though they understand English is the fear of making mistakes. This fear is often what holds us back from practicing. We might worry that we'll make a grammatical error, mispronounce a word, or say something wrong that will embarrass us. But here's the thing, making mistakes is part of the learning process. Every learner makes mistakes, and it's the mistakes that help us improve. When we try speaking and get things wrong, that's when we get the opportunity to learn and grow. Yet many learners feel embarrassed about making mistakes, which stops them from speaking in the first place. This fear is completely natural. It's a feeling that most language learners experience, especially at the beginning stages. However, it's important to understand that no one expects you to speak perfectly. In fact, the more mistakes you make, the better you'll get at speaking. The key is to embrace mistakes and see them as valuable learning opportunities. Every time you speak, you'll improve, and eventually those mistakes will become less frequent. 3. Lack of confidence. Sometimes, even though we understand a language, we don't feel confident enough to speak it. Confidence plays a huge role in communication. If we don't feel sure of ourselves, we're more likely to hesitate and avoid speaking. This lack of confidence often comes from self-doubt. We might worry about how we sound to others, or we might feel like our speaking skills aren't good enough compared to native speakers or other learners. This fear can hold us back from speaking even though we have the knowledge and ability to do so. Building confidence in speaking takes time and practice, but one of the best ways to start building confidence is to change your mindset. Remember, you don't have to sound perfect. The goal is to communicate your ideas and make connections with others. The more you speak, the more confident you will become. It's all about taking small steps and pushing yourself outside your comfort zone, one conversation at a time. For speaking speed and fluency issues, another reason why speaking might feel difficult is the issue of speaking speed and fluency. English learners often understand the language, but when they try to speak, they may struggle to find the right words or speak quickly enough. This can lead to hesitation and difficulty in forming sentences. When you speak a language, it's not just about knowing the words or the grammar rules. It's about being able to retrieve those words and put them together in real time. This requires practice and muscle memory. If you're not used to speaking often, your brain might take longer to find the words, and this can make you feel like you're stuck while speaking. For example, you might know the word apple, but when you need to talk about it, it takes a little longer for you to bring it to mind. This is a common issue for learners who focus mainly on passive skills like listening and reading, but don't practice speaking regularly. Your speaking speed and fluency improve with practice, but it takes time to build up that mental connection between the words and your ability to speak them quickly. 5. Fear of communication breakdown. Finally, some learners may be afraid of not being able to communicate clearly. They worry that their listeners won't understand them because of their accent mistakes or incorrect sentence structure. This fear of a communication breakdown can make us hesitate to speak or avoid situations where we have to use English. It's important to recognize that communication is not just about speaking perfectly. It's about getting your message across even if you make mistakes or have a strong accent. As long as your listener understands you, the conversation is successful. Many English learners fear speaking because they focus too much on perfection. But in reality, most people will appreciate the effort you're making to speak their language, and they'll be understanding if you make a mistake. 6. Limited vocabulary recall. When we understand English but have trouble speaking, it could also be due to limited vocabulary recall. This means that even though you know many words, you can't always remember them when you need them in a conversation. This issue often comes up when learners focus more on reading and listening and not enough on speaking practice, which involves a lot of active word recall. If you practice speaking regularly, your vocabulary will expand and you'll find it easier to recall words quickly when you need them. This is why speaking regularly is so important. forces you to use new vocabulary and improves your ability to remember and use words in context. As you can see, there are many reasons why you might understand English, but have trouble speaking it. Whether it's a lack of practice, fear of making mistakes, lack of confidence, issues with fluency, fear of communication breakdown, or limited vocabulary recall, all of these are common challenges for learners. But the good news is that these challenges are not permanent. With the right approach, you can overcome them, and it all starts with understanding why this happens. Once we understand the reasons behind our struggles, we can begin to take action and find solutions. In the next section, we'll talk about why speaking practice is so important and how it can help you become more confident and fluent in English. The importance of speaking practice. Now that we've explored why many learners understand English but struggle to speak it, let's focus on one of the most important solutions: speaking practice. If you want to become fluent and confident in English, speaking is key. But why is speaking practice so crucial? Why is it the most powerful way to improve your speaking skills? Once speaking connects knowledge to action. When you're learning English, you may spend a lot of time learning grammar rules, vocabulary, and reading or listening to English. These activities are important for understanding the language, but understanding a language and using it actively are two different things. When we practice speaking, we connect what we've learned in our heads with real-life communication. It's like taking a test where you apply everything you've learned in action. For example, you may know all the vocabulary for common foods, but when you walk into a restaurant, you might hesitate to order in English because you haven't practiced speaking the words. By practicing regularly, you'll be able to recall vocabulary and grammar rules quickly when needed. Speaking helps bridge the gap between knowledge and action. The more you speak, the faster your brain becomes at recalling words, forming sentences, and thinking in English. It also makes your understanding of English more practical because it allows you to use the language in real-life situations, which helps make the language stick to speaking. Practice builds confidence. One of the biggest obstacles to speaking English is confidence. As we discussed earlier, learners often know the language but lack the confidence to speak. The more you practice, the more comfortable you will become. Confidence comes with practice. It's important to recognize that confidence doesn't happen overnight, it's built over time. And speaking practice is the best way to build it. When you speak regularly, you get used to hearing yourself speak, making mistakes, and receiving feedback. The more you practice, the more you realize that making mistakes is not something to be afraid of. It's a normal part of the learning process. With each mistake, you become more confident in your ability to speak and communicate in English. Think about it this way: if you never practice, you will always stay in your comfort zone. Speaking even just a few minutes a day will push you beyond that zone and slowly build your confidence. The more you expose yourself to real conversations and situations, the more naturally confident you will become in speaking English. 3. Speaking helps you think in English. One of the most powerful outcomes of speaking practice is that it helps you to think in English. Most learners, especially beginners and intermediates, tend to think in their native language first and then translate it into English. This can slow down your response time and make it harder to speak fluently. When you practice speaking regularly, you train your brain to think directly in English instead of translating word for word. You start to understand the structure of English better and form sentences in English faster. This is what fluent speakers do. They think in English not in their native language. To get to this level, you need consistent speaking practice. You need to speak so often that it becomes second nature. The more you practice, the more your brain will automatically switch to thinking in English, which in turn will make you a faster and more natural speaker. For speaking practice improves pronunciation and fluency. Pronunciation and fluency are two areas that can improve dramatically with consistent speaking practice. If you don't practice speaking, your pronunciation may suffer. Even if you can read English well and understand it, speaking requires a different set of skills, especially when it comes to making the sounds and rhythms of the language. When you practice speaking, you give yourself the opportunity to focus on pronunciation. You'll hear yourself speak, and with practice, you can work on improving your accent, pronunciation of specific sounds, and the overall fluency of your speech. This doesn't happen by just listening or reading. It requires you to actively speak and pay attention to the way words sound. Fluency also improves with speaking practice. Fluency is about being able to express your thoughts clearly and quickly. When you practice speaking often, you'll notice that your ability to speak without hesitation improves. You'll begin to speak with more ease, and ideas will flow naturally. The more you practice, the less you'll pause to find words, and the more you'll sound like a native speaker. 5. Speaking practice builds your listening skills. It may seem like speaking and listening are two separate skills, but they're actually very closely related. In fact, practicing speaking can greatly improve your listening skills as well. When you speak English, you often have to listen carefully to your conversation partner in order to respond. This helps improve your listening comprehension. For example, if you're practicing English with a friend or teacher, you have to understand their response to continue the conversation. Through this back and forth exchange, you train your brain to listen more actively and catch details in conversations. Furthermore, when you practice speaking in real-life situations, you'll get used to the natural flow of conversations. You'll hear how native speakers use the language and adapt to it. This helps you improve your listening skills because you're exposed to authentic language use. Listening while speaking is like learning how to ride a bike. You can't separate the two, they go hand in hand. 6. Speaking practice makes you a better communicator. At its core, language is about communication. When you practice speaking, you improve your ability to express your thoughts, ideas, and feelings. Communication is not just about speaking clearly, it's also about understanding the other person and responding appropriately. Speaking practice teaches you how to navigate conversations, express yourself with confidence, and understand how to interact in different situations. It's not just about knowing the words, it's about knowing how to use those words in the right context. You will learn how to make small talk, ask questions, give opinions, and hold longer conversations, all of which are key components of communication. 7. Speaking practice helps you achieve your goals faster. If your goal is to speak English fluently, speaking practice is the fastest way to get there. Of course, reading, writing, and listening are all important parts of language learning, but speaking is where you'll see the most immediate improvement. When you practice speaking, you create real opportunities to use the language. This active usage of English helps you remember and retain information better than just passive activities like listening or reading. The more you practice, the more quick you'll see results. Speaking practice speeds up the process of becoming fluent because it forces you to actively engage with the language. In summary, speaking practice is crucial for improving your fluency, confidence, pronunciation, and communication skills. It helps you connect your knowledge to action, builds confidence, allows you to think in English, improves fluency, enhances listening skills, and makes you a better communicator overall. If you want to become fluent in English, you have to prioritize speaking practice. But don't worry if it seems difficult at first. Just remember, the more you speak, the easier and more natural it will become. In the next section, we'll discuss practical strategies you can use to practice speaking regularly and make it a part of your routine. Overcoming the fear of speaking. One of the biggest barriers to speaking English is the fear of speaking. It's natural to feel nervous or anxious when speaking a new language, especially when you're afraid of making mistakes or being judged. However, fear should not stop you from practicing and improving your speaking skills. The truth is, every English learner goes through this stage, but it can be overcome. One, understand that fear is normal. First of all, you need to know that the fear you're experiencing is perfectly normal. Almost everyone who learns a second language feels the same way, whether it's the fear of making mistakes, sounding strange, or being misunderstood. These feelings are part of the learning process. Even experienced language learners and sometimes native speakers feel anxious in certain situations. So instead of focusing on the fear, embrace it as a part of your journey. Recognize that it's a sign of growth. You're pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. And this is how improvement happens. The fear you feel today is simply a sign that you're challenging yourself, which is a good thing. Every time you push through this fear, you'll get one step closer to fluency, to shift your focus from perfection to progress. One of the reasons many people are afraid to speak English is because they want to speak perfectly. We all want to avoid mistakes, especially when we're speaking in front of others. But perfection is not the goal. The goal is progress. Instead of aiming to speak perfectly, focus on making progress. Speak as much as you can, even if you make mistakes. Mistakes are a natural part of the learning process, and they are essential for growth. When you allow yourself to make mistakes, you free yourself from the pressure of speaking perfectly, which in turn reduces your fear. Remember, no one speaks perfectly all the time, even in their native language. So allow yourself to make mistakes, learn from them, and keep moving forward. This shift in mindset will help you feel more comfortable when speaking. 3. Start small and build confidence slowly. The fear of speaking can be overwhelming if you try to take on too much at once. Instead of jumping into a full conversation with a native speaker right away, start small. Practice speaking in low-pressure situations. This will allow you to build your confidence gradually. You could start by speaking to yourself in English. For example, try describing what you're doing during the day, or talk to yourself about your thoughts and feelings. This helps you get used to hearing your own voice in English and makes speaking feel more natural. You can also practice with a friend or language partner who is supportive and understanding. If you're not comfortable speaking with a native speaker, at first practicing with someone at your level will help you feel more confident. Another great way to start is by repeating sentences or phrases you hear in movies, TV shows, or podcasts. This will help you practice the correct pronunciation and rhythm of the language, while also building your confidence as you hear yourself speaking. Use positive affirmations. One of the most effective ways to overcome fear is to change your inner dialogue. Positive affirmations can be a powerful tool. Instead of focusing on the fear or thinking I can't speak English, try replacing those thoughts with positive statements like I am improving every day or it's okay to make mistakes. These affirmations will help shift your mindset from fear to confidence. You can repeat these affirmations in the morning or before speaking practice sessions. It will train your mind to see speaking English as an opportunity to grow, not a task to be feared. The more you believe in your ability to improve, the less fear you'll feel. 5. Practice speaking in safe environments. If you're feeling nervous about speaking in front of others, start practicing in safe environments where you won't feel judged. This could be in front of a mirror with a language partner or by recording yourself speaking. Listening to recordings of yourself will allow you to notice areas where you can improve without the pressure of others listening. You could also consider joining a group of learners who are at the same level as you. In these groups, you can share your fears and struggles with others who understand what you're going through. This creates a supportive environment where everyone is there to learn together and help each other. 6. Learn from feedback, not criticism. Sometimes fear of speaking comes from the fear of criticism. We worry about what others will think of us if we make mistakes. But instead of fearing criticism, embrace feedback as a tool for improvement. When you get feedback, don't see it as a judgment, but as an opportunity to get better. Listen to the feedback with an open mind and use it to improve your speaking. If someone corrects your grammar or pronunciation, see it as a learning opportunity, not as a reason to feel ashamed or discouraged. Feedback is a gift and it can help you make progress faster. 7. Create a routine for regular speaking practice. Fear often rises from uncertainty. If you're not practicing regularly, you might feel unprepared and anxious when it's time to speak. However, when you practice regularly, you'll feel more confident in your abilities because you'll be used to speaking. Create a speaking practice routine that you follow every day or several times a week. This will give you the opportunity to improve your speaking skills gradually and naturally. By setting aside time each day to speak, you will not only reduce your fear, but also become more comfortable with using English. Regular practice allows you to track your progress, and over time you'll see how much you've improved. Remind yourself of the bigger picture. Sometimes fear of speaking comes from the idea that we're not good enough to speak English. Yet it's important to remind yourself that language learning is a journey and you're already on the right path. You don't need to be perfect, you just need to keep practicing. Think about why you're learning English in the first place. To open up opportunities, communicate with people around the world, and improve your personal and professional life. When you remember your reasons for learning English, the fear of speaking starts to feel smaller. You're doing this for yourself, and the fear will only hold you back. Push through it and remind yourself that speaking English will open doors for you that are worth facing. Your fear. Overcoming the fear of speaking English is something every learner goes through, but with time and consistent practice, it becomes easier. By understanding that fear is normal, focusing on progress instead of perfection, starting small, using positive affirmations, and creating a supportive environment for speaking, you can overcome your fear and become a more confident English speaker. Remember, speaking is not just about saying the right words. It's about practicing, improving, and enjoying the process of becoming fluent. Keep going and don't let fear hold you back. Practical tips to improve speaking Improving your speaking skills in English requires practice, patience, and a solid strategy. If you understand English, but find it hard to speak, don't worry, this is a common challenge. Fortunately, there are practical tips you can use to overcome this obstacle and improve your speaking skills. 1. Speak every day, even if it's just a little. One of the most effective ways to improve your speaking is to practice regularly. Try to speak in English every day, even if it's for just 5 to 10 minutes. The more often you speak, the more natural it will feel. You don't need to have long conversations with people. Simply talking to yourself, describing what you're doing, or narrating your thoughts in English can help you improve. Start small. For example, in the morning, describe the weather, your plans for the day, or how you're feeling. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it will help you get used to forming sentences and speaking in English. The key is consistency. To find a language partner or conversation buddy. Having a language partner or conversation buddy is one of the best ways to practice speaking. This could be a friend, family member, or someone you meet online who is also learning English. A language exchange is a great way to practice because you both get the chance to speak and help each other. You can take turns speaking in English in your partner's native language, which makes it a two-way learning experience. If you don't have someone to speak with in person, there are many online platforms where you can find people to practice with. Websites like a Talkie Tandem or Hello Talk allow you to connect with other learners and native speakers. Choose someone who is supportive, patient, and understands that you're learning. This will make your practice more enjoyable and less stressful. 3. Listen and repeat. Imitate native speakers. Listening and repeating is a powerful way to improve your speaking. Watch TV shows, movies, or listen to podcasts in English and then try to imitate the speaker. Focus on how they pronounce words, their intonation, and the rhythm of their speech. By copying the way they speak, you'll start to sound more natural. You can even pause the video or audio and try to repeat what was just said. This helps you practice your pronunciation and makes speaking feel more natural. Shadowing is a technique where you repeat the words immediately after hearing them. This not only helps with pronunciation, but also improves your fluency. For expand your vocabulary. Having a good vocabulary is key to speaking fluently. The more words you know, the easier it is to express yourself in different situations. But instead of just memorizing words, try to learn phrases and expressions that are commonly used in everyday conversations. For example, instead of just learning the word happy, learn expressions like feeling on top of the world or over the moon. These will make you sound more natural and allow you to express your feelings more accurately. To expand your vocabulary, read books, listen to podcasts, and watch videos in English. When you come across a word or phrase you don't know, write it down and make an effort to use it in conversation. It's important to actively use the words you learn rather than just recognizing them. 5. Record yourself speaking. Recording yourself speaking can be an eye-opening experience. It allows you to hear your own pronunciation, tone, and fluency. When you listen to yourself, you can notice areas where you need improvement, such as mispronunciations or awkward pauses. You can start by reading aloud or speaking about a topic for a few minutes. Afterward, listen to the recording and evaluate your performance. Don't be afraid to make corrections and re-record your speech over time. You'll notice improvements in your speaking ability. 6. Think in English. Thinking in English is an essential skill for fluency. Often, when we speak in our native language, We translate what we want to say into English. This slows down our speaking and makes us hesitate while we search for words. Instead, try to think directly in English. When you encounter a situation where you need to speak, don't translate in your mind first, just think and speak in English. This will help you respond more quickly and naturally. If you're unsure of a word, don't be afraid to use simple words or explain what you mean in a different way. The goal is communication, not perfection. 7. Use language learning apps. Language learning apps can be a great way to practice speaking, especially if you're looking for structured practice. Apps like Duolingo, Rosetta Stone, and Babbel offer speaking exercises that can help you practice pronunciation and sentence structure. Many apps also have speech recognition features that give you immediate feedback on your pronunciation. While these apps are helpful for practicing certain aspects of speaking, make sure to balance them with real-life conversation practice. Apps are great for learning vocabulary and basic grammar, but speaking with people will improve your fluency and confidence more quickly. Practice speaking slowly and clearly. Many learners feel pressure to speak quickly, but speaking too fast can make it harder to communicate clearly. Instead of rushing, focus on speaking slowly and clearly. This will give you time to think about what you want to say and ensure that your words are understood. If you have trouble with certain sounds or words, practice those individually. Speaking slowly also allows you to focus on your pronunciation, making your speech clearer and more accurate. When you speak at a comfortable pace, you'll also feel less stressed. 9. Join speaking clubs or groups. Many cities and online communities offer language clubs or groups where learners can practice speaking with others. These groups are often informal and or designed to help people build confidence in speaking English. Joining a group like this gives you the chance to practice speaking in a relaxed environment where everyone is there to learn. Some organizations even offer public speaking workshops where you can practice speaking in front of an audience in a safe space. If you're looking for a more structured environment, these types of activities can help you gain confidence while practicing English. 10. Be patient and stay motivated. Improving your speaking skills takes time, so don't get discouraged. If you don't see immediate results, stay patient with yourself and recognize that improvement happens gradually. Celebrate small successes, such as speaking a full sentence without hesitation or making yourself understood during a conversation. To stay motivated, remind yourself of why you're learning English, whether it's to travel, get a better job, or communicate with new people. Keeping your goals in mind will help you stay committed to your practice. Consistency is key, so keep practicing regularly and trust that progress will come. Improving your speaking skills in English requires dedication, practice, and the right strategies. By speaking every day, finding a language partner, listening and imitating native speakers, expanding your vocabulary, recording yourself, and staying motivated, you can make significant progress. The key is to keep practicing, stay patient, and enjoy the learning process. The more you speak, the easier and more natural it will become. Don't let fear or hesitation hold you back. Keep speaking and you will become more confident and fluent in English. Listening and speaking connection. Listening and speaking are two sides of the same coin when it comes to learning a language. In fact, these skills are closely connected, and improving one can have a direct impact on the other. Many learners struggle with speaking because they don't fully understand the connection between listening and speaking. However, once you realize how these skills work together, You can use that understanding to improve both your speaking and listening skills. The importance of listening for speaking. When we speak, we are essentially producing sounds, words, and sentences that we have heard before. That's why listening is such a crucial part of learning to speak. The more you listen to native speakers or fluent English speakers, the more you will absorb patterns, pronunciation, and vocabulary. By listening, you train your ear to understand the rhythm, intonation, and flow of the language. This is essential for speaking naturally and fluently. Listening helps you learn correct pronunciation and intonation. By listening to how native speakers pronounce words, sentences, and phrases, you can imitate their pronunciation. Intonation refers to the rise and fall of the voice while speaking. By listening, you learn when to use rising or falling tones, which helps you speak in a more natural sounding way. Understand sentence structure. Listening to English in real-life contexts helps you see how words and sentences are arranged naturally. This allows you to form your own sentences in a way that makes sense to native speakers. Build vocabulary. The more you listen to English, the more words you will be exposed to. You will hear common phrases and expressions, as well as learn words used in different contexts. This exposure allows you to improve your speaking ability by giving you a wider range of vocabulary to choose from. Understand cultural references. Listening to native speakers helps you learn about culture-specific phrases, idioms, and expressions. Knowing these will make you sound more natural and allow you to better understand native speakers in conversations. The feedback loop between listening and speaking. Listening and speaking are part of a feedback loop that helps you become fluent. Here's how the feedback loop works. When you listen to English, you hear how words and sentences are structured. You also hear how sounds and words are linked together when spoken quickly. Then, when you try speaking, you apply what you've learned from listening. As you continue practicing speaking, you reinforce what you have heard. The more you listen and speak, the more your brain processes the language, helping you get better at both skills. For example, after listening to a podcast or a conversation in English, try to repeat what you've heard. You can even record yourself and compare it with the original recording. This allows you to spot differences in your pronunciation, intonation, and rhythm. It also helps you see which words or sounds you need to focus on to improve the role of listening and fluency. Fluency in speaking doesn't just mean speaking quickly, it means being able to speak clearly and smoothly without pausing too much or hesitating. Listening plays a huge role in achieving fluency because it helps you become familiar with how the language flows. When you listen to natural conversations, you will notice that native speakers often speak in short phrases rather than long, complicated sentences. They also link words together, which is known as connected speech. For example, instead of saying, "Do you want to go to the park?" native speakers might say something that sounds like, "Do you want to go to the park?" This is natural speech that fluent speakers use all the time. By regularly listening to these patterns, you will start to mimic them in your own speech. This allows you to speak more naturally without thinking too much about grammar or structure. Over time, you will speak with more ease without worrying too much about the technical details. How listening helps you overcome speaking barriers. One of the biggest obstacles learners face is the fear of making mistakes while speaking. However, if you listen to native speakers or fluent speakers, you'll realize that mistakes are a normal part of communication. and everyone makes them, even native speakers. This understanding can help reduce anxiety and fear when you are speaking, when you listen to conversations in English. Notice how speakers don't worry too much about making mistakes. That often fix mistakes easily without interrupting the flow of their conversation. This makes speaking feel more relaxed and natural. So, if you make a mistake, don't let it stop you from continuing the conversation. Remember, listening to real conversations helps you become more comfortable with natural communication, and you will gradually overcome your fear of speaking. Developing listening skills. For speaking improvement, to use listening as a tool to improve your speaking, you need to develop good listening skills. Here are some tips for improving your listening skills, which will ultimately help improve your speaking. Listen to a variety of content. It's important to expose yourself to different accents, tones, and types of content. Watch movies, listen to podcasts, and engage with various forms of media in English. By listening to different types of content, will train your brain to understand English in many contexts. For example, listening to podcasts about daily life is different from listening to news reports, so it's important to practice. Both. Start with slower content. If you're just starting out or struggling with listening, begin by listening to slower content designed for learners. There are plenty of podcasts, audio books, and YouTube videos made specifically for English learners. These will help you understand the basic structure and vocabulary of English. As you improve, you can move on to faster content like native podcasts and movies. Use subtitles or transcripts. When you listen to videos or podcasts, use subtitles or transcripts if available. This helps you follow along and reinforces your understanding. It also helps you connect spoken words with written words. Try listening first without subtitles, and then watch again with subtitles. This will help you reinforce new vocabulary and understand how words are pronounced. Listen actively. Don't just passively listen to English. Engage with it. Focus on the speaker's tone, pauses, and phrasing. Pay attention to how they emphasize certain words and how the sentence structure changes when they want to express something important. Try to imitate these aspects when you speak. Active listening is key to improving both listening and speaking skills. Practice listening to real conversations. The best way to learn how to speak naturally is by listening to how people talk in everyday conversations. Find podcasts or audio materials that reflect real conversations between native speakers. This will expose you to common expressions, slang, and ways of speaking that are not always found in textbooks. The power of listening and speaking together. By focusing on both listening and speaking, you create a powerful combination that can significantly improve your fluency. Listening to the language and speaking it go hand in hand. When you hear more, you can speak more confidently and accurately. When you speak more, your brain becomes more accustomed to the sounds and rhythm of the language, which helps you understand it better when you hear again. Remember, the more you listen, the better you speak, and the more you speak, the better you will listen. They are a dynamic pair, and by practicing both skills together, you will unlock the key to fluency in English. Conclusion. In conclusion, the connection between listening and speaking is incredibly powerful. In the language learning process, listening helps you absorb the sounds, rhythm, and structure of the language, while speaking allows you to apply what you've learned in real conversations. Both skills reinforce each other and are essential for becoming fluent in English. by actively listening to English, whether through podcasts, conversations, movies, or other media. You are training your brain to understand the language at a deeper level. This makes it easier to speak confidently and naturally. At the same time, practicing speaking allows you to put your listening skills to work, helping you express yourself clearly and effectively. Don't be discouraged if you find speaking challenging at first. With regular practice and a willingness to make mistakes, you will improve both your listening and speaking abilities. Remember, fluency comes with time, and every step you take toward listening more and speaking more brings you closer to your goal. So keep listening to English content, practice speaking as much as you can, and trust that your skills will grow. The journey to fluency is not a race, but a steady process that will reward you with greater confidence, improved communication, and a deeper connection to the language you've got. Keep practicing, and soon you'll find yourself speaking more effortlessly and understanding English.